Hey, Walter Sorrells back with more tips for the knife maker. Today, the amazing saga of how this got here in my shop. Today I'm going to be showing the arrival of what should be a game-changing tool for me. That is this brand spanking new Haas CNC machine. Now it might sound like moving in a little piece of industrial equipment like this is not that big a deal, but doing it in a rural location, not so easy. So we're going to follow how the riggers came and put this thing in my shop. It's a very cool process. So anyway, I'll talk more in the future about why I bought this machine, what it's going to be doing, for this operation. But suffice it to say that my plan is to start ramping up production of my Tactics Armory knives. This knife right here, the Nightfall, should be the first blade that I'll produce on this machine. Really excited about doing that. Now, I've done a limited run of these Nightfalls on my old CNC machine, my Tormach, but I'll do a full run soon on this baby. More about that later, but check tacticsarmory.com if you're interested in pre-ordering one of these new ones. Anyway, I put my order in for this Haas about 4 months ago, I think, and it finally arrived yesterday. So this is just going to be about the process of actually moving it into the shop, which is a lot more interesting than you might think. All right, let's jump into it. Before the riggers got here to move the machine into place, I had to move a lot of stuff out of the way, and you will see why once these guys roll in. I had to get all my woodworking equipment, my entire forge set up, and a whole bunch of other stuff out of the way so that he'd be able to sneak through there with the new machine. Now, I've been able to get 18-wheelers into the driveway of my shop, but the rigger, David Irving of U.S. Millwrights, was kind of skeptical about the idea. And in fact, when he got there, he said it just wasn't doable. So they dropped the flatbed on the road outside my house, rolled the forklift off, and took the machine straight up from the road. This was probably the most nerve-wracking part of the whole move-in, because my driveway is not what you'd call flat. But honestly, once I saw David driving the forklift, I could see he was really, really good at what he did, and I didn't feel particularly worried. The Haas is bolted onto a skid, basically just a ginormous pallet. So once it came up the driveway, he just dropped it outside my shop, and they unwrapped it there. You could see from the way they worked that they had done this many a time. There were 4 layers of wrapping, so this thing, no lie, could have gone through a hurricane without the slightest fear of the machine getting wet. While they're unwrapping it, a little background. I've been making blades under the Tactics Armory name for something like 10 years now, but the Tactics thing's kind of gone up and down as a focus of my attention. I also make Japanese swords and so on. So, I've had this small hobbyist type CNC, a Tormach 770, for years, but this is a huge upgrade. The idea here is that I'm going to be making a big commitment to really focusing on the mid-tech semi-production type knife world and growing Tactics Armory again. Once the wrapping was off, David eased it on through the smallest bay door of my shop. It looks kind of tippy, but the bulk of the weight of this machine is right there in the center, so it's actually pretty stable. Most of the stuff on the sides is just sheet metal. I'd been concerned it might bump into my lights inside the shop, but there was enough clearance that didn't turn out to be a problem. Never bumped into a single thing, which introduces what to me is the really remarkable part of this move-in. David drove the forklift inside. Now, I knew a forklift would have to come inside, but the forks on this thing were huge. I really hadn't figured on them being quite this big. So I'd say it was probably, 16 feet long, which meant turning around was a really high skill operation. And David was just a magician with the lift. Some clown who didn't know what they were doing could have done thousands of dollars of damage in basically any direction. But he moved it around with, I'd have to call it artistry. So I never felt at all nervous about what was happening with that forklift in there. There was some up and down work getting the machine unbolted from the skid. Then they just dropped the whole thing on a pallet jack and just dragged it over to the location I'd marked on the floor. And there they dropped it in place. Quick inspection, whole thing's done. In and out, probably an hour, hour and a half. I always enjoy watching people who are good at their jobs doing stuff, so this was a real pleasure. But the biggest pleasure, of course, is finally seeing this machine in place. Getting this machine here, for reasons I'll get into another time, was a very long and stressful process. So seeing it here at home, unbelievable relief. Well, I hope you enjoyed that. I thought it was actually a really interesting process, and I was also impressed with just how smoothly the move-in went. There were no close shaves, with the machine looking like it was going to fall over, nothing like that, just like butter. Next step will be to get a technician out to clean all the protective goop off of the way covers and install all kinds of little bits and pieces. Basically, just get me up and running on this machine. Until that guy gets here, though, basically this is just a big old piece of sculpture just sitting here taking up space. So, hope he gets here soon. Now, while I'm sitting around drumming my fingers, for those of you who might be in the market, I'll be testing out an ultra cheap belt grinder. So, look for my review of that next week. Thanks for watching, guys. If you like what we're doing here, please subscribe and make sure that you click on that bell so you get notified of all the latest videos. Want to buy a knife from me? Check out my modern blades at tacticsarmory.com. Digging the channel? You can support our video making efforts on Patreon. I've been banging away on these videos for like 10 years, so I hope you'll show some love for all that hard work. Link in the cards and descriptions. Finally, if you're interested in making Japanese swords, check out my full line of Japanese sword videos where I show how to forge Japanese swords as well as how to polish them and how to make fittings, handles, and scabbards. WalterSorrellsBlades.com.